Oh yeah, restaurant, there you go.
It's lovely. Oh, they open yet though.
Is that brake fluid?
Yep.
Fun.
Have a quick look at that.
Unless it's just dribbling out of the cap.
Might be. It is a bit full, and we did come down that very steep curve.
Vaseline.
I bought myself a Vaseline somewhere in Mexico. We left it on the dash, and we had the heater on still. The only thing it does is heat up the dashboard.
Yeah.
And it all melted out into the thing. So I think it's just,
So you've got...
now it's got hot and it's dripping out. It's probably
Yeah, it's there. You can see it under here. Oh, there it is.
We'll
Yeah.
wind everybody up.
That's the thing, when you see a leak and you're like, well, it's got to be the Land Rover. What else could it be? That was really nice food.
That was great, yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, that's surprising to find something like that this here. They must get a lot of traffic now because of the road.
Tarmac road,
Yeah. There's one benefit of tarmac.
15 years ago, I used to drive this road and it was just dirt. And now it's a smooth highway. We're going to see how far the tarmac, or asphalt, has got to, and if there's any part of the old road remaining. If there is, then it'll be a further trip down memory lane for me, about that time I had my first off-roading lesson and when I almost skidded off a cliff. We'll be highlighting some of the pros and cons of tarmacing roads into remote areas, so dive into the comments if you have any first-hand experience of this happening somewhere you know. If you need all the context of what we're up to on this journey, check out the first video in the series.
These were the bends that, when you get, because they're so tightly banked, the water runs off, so you get gullies going to the right, and they're always worse on the right, so you'd have to go on the left. It was a lot smoother, but then you've always got the risk of the car coming round. So you'd have to judge, so you always have to judge it quite carefully. And there's the barrier. Oh, there's the old road, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
So the old road was that bit.
For now though, we're ascending and the foliage in this jungle covered country is starting to turn into a pine forest.
So I guess there's 4 miles of gravelly bits.
Windshield smackers.
Yeah. So this is kind of the extent of the tarmac. Completely unrecognisable up to this point, really. This is the road I used to drive, and it's now tarmac. It's completely unrecognisable because it's not just tarmacking the road, it's also the grading and the excavation and straightening the road in certain places. So it's more like a US highway. So from here on, this looks like the next phase where they've recently been doing the works, and then from there on out, we're expecting it to get down to kind of graded but muddy road. They used to grade it about once a year when I was here, and it used to get awful. Corrugation, this was the worst bit of corrugations I used to drive on, was down here. So from here on out, a few miles down the road, it'll be probably the road I remember, but we'll have to see. It's mixed emotions because a lot of my memories, and I did a lot of driving in Belize, so a lot of my memories are mixed up with this road. But I'm old enough now, I've come to terms with the fact that things change, and that's just the way it is. So luckily we've been able to get here before they've tarmacked all the way. But that's the thing, it's going to be gone, and it'll be gone forever. So from my perspective, from an off-road perspective, it's kind of sad. But there's a massive flip side to that, and that's for the locals. We just stopped in it with the lodges along here. Yeah, I said to the guy, when was the road finished? He was like, last year or whatever. And what's it like? He says, it's great, man. For those guys, it's their business. They're running their business, and tourists can get up there more easily. You can open access to this wonderful part of Belize, which you could only get to with a four-wheel drive in the past. And that's part of the appeal of four-wheel driving, is knowing you can get places to other people can't. So that's probably the tinge of sadness that happens, because tourism tends to change places. Mass tourism tends to change places, and there's the romantic part of you that says that change is not for the better. But
live streaming all your peeps.
no, I'm just blabbering in front of the camera.
Are you okay?
What up, wheelheads back back.
Okay, just get back into my train of thought here.
Mass tourism changes things in a lot of countries. You know, roads are generally the thing that opens up that mass tourism, so you can get any vehicle. For the locals, it's great. It means they can run businesses, and tourism brings money into the country. I've experienced that in Nepal, trekking in Nepal, where excavator was basically digging a road outside at the side of the hillside to get access to a village, to a community. For the people that live in the ends of communities that don't have tarmac roads, it means reliable transport. It means that they can easily get their stuff to market. They don't have to walk and carry it. They can move it on a bike or a moped, or taxis can come from the nearest town and they can take stuff back. From the romantic side, someone that likes driving off-road and getting access to places that there isn't mass tourism, it's sad. But this isn't my country. It's not my decision. I have absolutely no ownership over what should happen to this road. I just have memories, and those are personal to me. I can have opinions, but it does not matter one jot because it's not my country. All I just want to do is just see it before it's gone, and then whatever will be, will be. See that right there? Those were the kinds of vehicles I used to pull out of the mud. Tourists would come up into the mountains and have a day out, and they'd get stuck. And it's quite fun pulling them out. You help people, but that's the kind of tourism that can get here now, because there's reliable transport to get there. And you said one of the downsides, fair enough, it opens access for communities and people to earn business, but it also opens access for poachers and other people to come in and do nefarious things. You can liken it a bit to the internet. The internet has basically created instant, free, global communication. And good things can happen with that, and bad things can happen with that. And it's kind of the same thing for tarmac roads.
Yo, Willheads, don't forget to smash that like button and ding ding subscribe, motherfuckers.
What he said.
One of the realities of taking part in an expedition that's also a film shoot is the stop-start nature, as cameras are set up, multiple takes are made, and then you're off again. The other challenge is getting access to the main talent. So in a brief moment, I quizzed Graham on his opinion of tarmac roads.
I have lots of opinions about tarmac roads, so I'm conflicted. I would say I'm not ambivalent, but I am conflicted. I like tarmac for the sake of getting to where I want to go, because you can cruise nice and comfortably and stuff like that. So if I have a long transit, I'm okay with tarmac. So coming down through Mexico, the toll roads, if we'd been driving old school, it would have taken us 2 weeks to get through Mexico, but it only took us 4 days. So in that sense, I'm okay with tarmac. I think in remote areas, pushing tarmac into remote areas, I don't like that very much, because I think it's a great barrier, and the longer the dirt stretch, the more of a filter you get. So the people who actually get to remote areas on dirt actually are more capable people, and probably the sort of people you actually want to have in those areas. But always conflicted on tarmac. Never like to see it being laid down, especially in places I like to go.
There's a fair amount of traffic on this road. I mean, it's obviously not that busy compared to European standards, but you hardly ever see other vehicles on the road. Actually, the most vehicles I'd ever seen on here was British Army convoy. That's pretty epic when you're coming in the opposite direction of British Army convoy, and trucks and wolves going the other direction. That is epic. This is where the British Army would come before they got deployed to Afghanistan. They'd come to Belize and do acclimatisation training. So you just see all the squaddies walking up and down the roads in the day, middle of the day, just doing exercise, carrying their full packs in the heat, just to get them up to speed before they went to Afghanistan.
Heading off again along the tarmac, I was trying to rack my memory for recognisable features, but the road had become less twisting and turning than I'd remembered. Every now and then you'd get a small glimpse of the old road as the new tarmac cut the corner and shortened journey times. The bridges in my memory were narrow strips of concrete across the creek beds below, but they seemed to have disappeared.
I built over the top of it.
But at that moment, as we followed a diversion down the old road, I wasn't prepared for what I saw next. A stonking great flyover, an overt contrast between the old and the new, juxtaposition, if you're that way inclined. From a naive perspective, tarmacing a road sounds just like that, changing the road surface. But in reality, it would be a missed opportunity to not reshape the alignment of the road to make an overall more effective transport route. When you're up on top, gliding through the landscape, you don't really think much about what goes on underneath.
Look at the rocks they're bringing in.
Yeah.
Well, it's going even further. That's the end of the tarmac. Back on the road as I used to know it. As Graham used to know it.
As I used to know, yeah.
Keep going around the corner.
Corrugations and all.
Big bucks, no whammies, and stop.
Yeah, there's those runoff corrugations. This bit of road's actually in very good condition. So they say, I mean, they graded it once when I was here, in a year or whatever. They tended to do it after the wet season, and then it's a lot better.
I remember we got here right after they graded it one time, and it was magic. You could just fly down it, and it was great. And then the next
it gets really bad in the wet season, pretty rough. Not that muddy,
not that
just,
muddy, right?
Just rough and rutted. And
I mean, coming down to those bridges where everyone's braking and then accelerating
that
out the
was the
side,
worst
it
place.
it was awful.
But fun of this thing,
Yeah,
because you had to use your skills.
you have to use your skills. Yeah.
I mean, I did this road once. Brakes had gone.
Oh shit.
So I had to use engine braking all the way. So you see this,
Wow.
like the steep bits coming down into those. You're on the corrugations and you're like, oh god. Well, there was a bit of brakes, but I had to pump the pedal, so I had to choose exactly when I needed to use the
when you
brakes.
need them,
Just when I needed to use them, not any other time. So, yeah.
We actually had the No Limits pickup. It was a 110 pickup with a quad cab, and the roofs, like we'd be braking, going down on those corrugations down to the bridge, and the whole roof of the car started moving forwards because James had tightened up the limb riser lines so tight that they were just putting tension on the whole thing.
I see the marker for the.
After a while, we turned off to go and visit a nearby picnic spot.
I did my first off-roading down this road,
Oh yeah?
and slave cylinder went on the clutch, so we had to turn back. Splash! Yeah!
Copy that, idea.
There's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
One of the elements of tarmac and road is easy access for a lot of small people. And who can begrudge families coming out for picnics to a wonderful, beautiful spooky spot?
Cold water on our weary feet felt unbelievably refreshing, even though we'd been sat on our asses all day.
I'm just trying to remember the bit of spin out. Yes. Is it here? Yeah, so this is where I spun out, right there. So I came round, I was going the other way. So basically, came round, so it's hard top, so it's light on the rear end. You come round, the back went out, and I started sliding towards the side, and all you can see is like a big valley. So I just cranked the wheel over to the right, and then it spun back the other way, and I ended up pointing perpendicular to the road, just staring at like the cliff wall area, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's the limit. So I just got out and just had a look around, just to sort of decompress a bit. I don't know how fast I was going, but I mean obviously too fast for the conditions. Didn't have diff lock in, because I didn't habitually put it in, but that was the moment when I was lucky enough to find the limit and there were no consequences.
Yeah.
And it's a good learning experience.
Very good learning. I think one thing we try and train people to do is as soon as you hit dirt of any kind, even improved dirt, either lock the centre diff if you're in a full-time four-wheel drive, or to put it into four-wheel drive if you're in a part-time. The stability, I mean, there's a reason Audi won the Group B Rally Championship in the 80s. I mean, there's a reason they did that. It's because they put four-wheel drive in their cars, right? So the traction, the stability, all of that stuff is greatly increased.
Yeah.
And you can even do it for yourself, right? So you can go down a corrugated road in two-wheel drive or diff lock open, and then turn around and do the same thing at a decent, steady speed, and you'll actually feel the stability increase. You feel the car's a lot more planted.
Definitely on the corrugations, like the ones we just hit there, you can feel it with the diff lock. You just sort of give it a bit of a wiggle, you can feel it's a lot more sure-footed in that situation. But I mean, I've got stories, unfortunately. There's Belize Defence Force, the BDF, they ran Land Rovers, soft tops like these, without roll cages, and they had cars flipping off the road and guys killed. So they went through an upgrade program to put roll cages on. I've had a few sketchy times trying to overtake like lorries, so you go out around to the side and then you're in the rough stuff off to the side.
And the road's tapered off to the side as well, so you're already being moved towards the
So I've had a few times when I did a bit of sketchy overtaking that I shouldn't have done probably. But likewise, that's the limits. You find the limits there and go, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do that again.
It's good to go up to the limit and not step over it.
Yeah. Look over the precipice and be like, wow, that's the limit. Okay, I can see what you look like now. Yeah.
It soon became apparent that the progress had moved on further in preparation for the new road. The vegetation had been scraped away to give unhindered access for the new route, and the dirt track was now snaking around obstacles and over culverts, showed the difference that the new road would make and how old and obsolete the old road looked. Soon, the old track was going to be erased from the landscape. I'll let this clip run in full as a time capsule of what it used to be like.
So, new road level. It's really interesting how they're going to get down this bit of the road. How's the view?
Not so bad when I can see it.
A bit dusty on there.
Yeah, slightly.
There it is. Bridge. Oh, they're going to replace the bridge.
Oh, wow. Yeah. We've already started building it. Wow. This is going to change. Jeez.
Jeep.
Toyota. Did you
Land Rover.
trifecta? Jeep, Toyota and Land Rover all in the same spot?
Which one's best? There's only one way to find out. Fight!
Alright, we're going to pick up these shots tomorrow. We don't want all the guys hanging brain in the foreground.
That's exactly what I said, mate. Cheers, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
If we ignore the guy's hanging brain, as Nathan eloquently put it, you can see the pier foundations in the middle of the river. That is going to be some flyover. So in this footage from 15 years beforehand, the bridge is basically cutting straight across here.
Out of my way, nature!
The first time I went over this bridge, I happened to take some photos as we'd been driving for several hours down this dusty jungle road to come across this magnificent river. And I was being driven by the now famous TV explorer Ed Stafford, who later that day managed to well and truly wedge us in the mud. And that became my first experience of a vehicle recovery. I was also taking some footage here once when the missus photo-bombed it, so 15 years later I decided to recreate that shot. This bridge was always a cool place to hang out. One time, having camped in the jungle the night before, we emerged, had a wash in the river, watched the scarlet macaws flying overhead, and then got met by a camel trophy discovery that just happened to be driving down the road, as you do.
Morning.
As the afternoon was wearing on, we had a quick stop to do a recce for something we'd be doing in a couple of days' time, which you'll see in a later video.
Sorts of places you can get to with these remote roads. Although it's a bit of a moot point in the case because it's dry season and it's not that difficult to get here in a normal kind of vehicle, but wet season. That's the thing about tarmac. Tarmac roads become an all-weather road. You really need four-wheel drive in the wet season. So we've got to our final destination for today. Fantastic jungle. We were just talking to the base manager here about the road. It's a good thing or a bad thing? He's like, well, if you look at it in a positive way, it's a good thing. If you look at it in a negative way, it's a bad thing. As he said, it can bring a lot more tourism, a lot more people access to this part of Belize, and not just external tourists, foreign tourists, but even Belizean tourists. I was a firm believer when I was here that opening up tourism to areas allows people to go and understand the environment, the jungle environment. A lot of cultures around the world that have jungles in their borders have fears of the jungle. Malaysia, the fear of jungle spirits is really severe or really serious. It's not something to be messed around with. So the more you can bring people into this environment, the more they understand it, the more they respect it, and the more likely they are to conserve it eventually. So bringing people into these areas to educate them is only really a good thing, as long as it's responsible, naturally. He was saying on the flip side, the negative side is that there's better access for poachers, people to do illegal activities. They can bring in a lot bigger vehicles, or even a lot smaller vehicles, potentially motorbikes under the radar, what have you. In the wet season, the state of these roads would have basically meant this area was completely off limits to anyone that had anything less than a full four-wheel drive. And the roads on from here that I used to drive, we had big tractors and Caterpillar track vehicles that would get us into those further areas in the true wet season. And now it will be accessible all year, which makes things a lot more efficient, a lot cheaper to run scientific research in places like this. But it's double-edged sword. It's one of those things where you only really have an opinion if you've seen the before and the after. There's the whole, like when the younger generation comes up, the older generation may criticise certain developments within society, but the younger generation have known nothing different. So it's kind of the case here. If this was my first time in the Belize, you would see the devastation of the road and it would feel quite bad. Having known the road, it feels quite personal for me. But in 5 years' time, when that road is built, people are using it, and you've arrived here for the first time, then you wouldn't know any different. Anyway, interested to know what you guys think in the comments. Please leave a comment where you sit on the side of the divide, if you have any personal experience of seeing places and then having, before there was a tarmac road and then having a tarmac road put in. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Join us in the next video as we look for the place where my Land Rover rolled.